Hello, my name is Clark Kent for Testron. During the next 20 minutes, we'll be demonstrating some of the newest technology available to you, the TVRO dealer and technician. Now, there's no need to take notes, so just get a big bowl of popcorn and sit back and relax. After all, this is only a tape. You can always rewind. First, let me get out of this disguise and talk to you as a more human person. First of all, we'll be demonstrating our 018019 key extraction module and BRM kit. And then I'll show you our 3D 018019 test device. After that, we'll move on to our 010 universal test device. Then a few surprises, making a board run with a totally destroyed U-30 location. And our final surprise, our new Pocket Pal, but I'll tell you more about that later. Testron's key extraction module is the only device on the market that will pull keys in all 018 and 019 series units. Now, this includes both 3.0 and 3.1 software. Please notice that this device is not covered by epoxy. This allows us to upgrade this device should it ever become necessary. And of course, all upgrades are free to BRM customers. Notice that only 2 of the 7 wires are connected to points covered by epoxy. Now, let's power up the unit and press Setup 9 for the BRM menu. To extract the keys, press Selection 7, which indicates Read Seed Keys. To complete the process, we'll now press Setup 9. 1. Dump memory. Of course, we will have to instruct the program to start at location 66D0, the key table. And bingo, there's our key table. Notice the keys start after the ID number in the 3rd column, 2nd row. This procedure and all others are covered in our easy-to-understand manuals. No technical language is used. If you can install a socket in the U30 position, then you can also perform all BRM functions. Have you any questions? It's easy. Just call us, and you'll receive free, unlimited telephone technical support. Now, let's take a look and see what you'll be receiving for your hard-earned. A 010 BRM, a 018019 BRM, a 018019 key extraction module, a free $275 3M Protect test module, 6 replacement capacitors, 2 new batteries, 2 operating manuals, and 6 blank key and RAM table sheets. Now, by the way, all of Testron's products are only sold to TVRO dealers and technicians. Our products are not intended to deprive parties of signal income and should not be used for this purpose. Our products will not be sold to VC homeowners for pirate purposes. Testron's test devices are intended for and should only be used as test instruments. Now, let's take a look at one of Testron's most popular products, the Protect 3D test device. In case you haven't been reading our ads in Blank Box or haven't seen this test instrument demonstrated in the last edition of Pirate Video, I'll fill you in on some of the details. First of all, 3D means Decipher Data Detection. This device is used to test all standalone 2100 VCs and IRDs with an address number of 018 through 018F and 0190 and higher. It is also programmed to work in either 3.0 or 3.1 versions. This simple module comes complete with a socket to replace U30 and fits neatly into the plastic milk crate, even when it's closed. Now, let's discuss some of the more important features of this truly unique device. Probably its most important feature is that it's totally self-sustaining. Also, no monthly data entry is needed. The Protect 3D test device will not alter or change your original address number or key tables. And, of course, it is not a clone. Now you're probably wondering, how does this work? Well, I can tell you that it does require the presence of a correct address number and health bytes. Of course, the health bytes reveal that the key tables are intact. Each Protect test device comes with this 6-page manual covering installation, soldering precautions, helpful hints, and troubleshooting guide. The concise diagrams make the installation almost foolproof. As with all of our products, unlimited technical telephone support is available 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. Now, we're only as far away as your telephone, so why not call us today and order one? You'll be glad you did. And while you're about it, I think we should talk about the price and warranty. Each Protect 3D test device is $350 plus shipping. Visa, MasterCard, and COD orders are accepted for all of our products. Our warranty policy, it's simple. Free replacement or repair if any of our products ever proves to be defective. And free software upgrades should they ever become necessary. For how long? Well, I'm glad you asked. Forever. For VC units with address numbers between 0100 and 0106, order the Protect Universal Test Device. Still the best and still only $225 plus shipping. Call us for complete details. Once in a while, our repair department is asked to repair a board with a totally trashed out U30 position. Can it be replaced? Or should I say, is it worth repairing? Well, the answer is yes. It can be repaired, and yes, it is cost effective. In order to save time, and therefore money, we will not bother to save the U30 position. Instead, we will socket U19 and install one of our U19 modules. This will cause the board to operate as if the U30 were present. Thus, what appeared to be a totally lost board is brought back to full functionality. These U19 test devices are available only through our repair department. Call us for a quote on this type of repair. Now, I'd like to introduce our latest tool, the Pocket Pal 010 Program Analyzer. The only tool available that does not require the use of a complete satellite system. Yes, you heard me correctly. For the first time, you can work on standalone 010 VCs connected only to a TV set. Forget the receiver, the dish, or computer connections. Leave your expensive BRM equipment in the shop. Carry your Pocket Pal in your pocket. Don't leave home without it. Now, I'll show you its functions. By placing it in the U30 socket, let's power up this little wonder and see some of the miracles the Pocket Pal can perform. To start the program, just press Enter on the front panel of the VC. Pressing 1 will allow us to view any RAM location without shifting data. Pressing 2 will display the seed keys. Pressing 3 will allow us to write the address number or key tables. Pressing 4 will correct all errors in U20 RAM location 6000 through 67FF. Pressing 5 will allow us to modify any RAM location. Pressing 6 will display the resident monthly keys. The Pocket Pal does not contain any viruses and is not copy protected. If you have previously purchased a BRM from Testron, the Pocket Pal will be sent as a free upgrade without having to call us. You can obtain the Pocket Pal for free by ordering any 2 Protect test devices and mentioning this tape. The Pocket Pal can also be purchased for $79.95 plus shipping. Thank you for your continued support.
Welcome to Testron's production of installation and repair of Videocipher 2000 and 2100. I'm Steve, sales manager.
And I'm Mike, chief engineer.
Mike, why don't we go inside and start showing these people everything they've wanted to know about Videocipher 2000 and 2100, but we're afraid to ask General Instruments.
Fine, let's go.
Now that we've unpacked the Videocipher, I've noticed that these cables have come with it. Would you briefly explain to us each of them, starting with this one here?
Okay. We have an audio cable here. It's easy to identify. It has a red and a black lead on it. These cables are used generally for the audio on the back of the Videocipher. This one is a special video cable. It has two RF connectors on it. It's a lot different than the two other cables that come with the Videocipher because it's fatter and it's designed more or less to handle video signals. And it's not to be confused with any of the audio cables that are used in the package.
I see that there's a set of batteries here.
Yes, sir. These batteries do not go in the Videocipher. People have asked before where they put them. They go in the remote control that comes with the 2100 infrared remote control. That is optional. Not every 2100 comes with an infrared remote control.
While we're on the subject of the 2100, while this is a 2000, would you explain to me the difference between a 2100 and a 2000 other than the remote control for the 2100?
Okay. The 2100 has the same black computer board housing inside as the 2000. The only difference in the 2100 is the software, the program in the U30 chip that allows the on-screen graphics to not overwrite the on-screen graphics produced by the IRD receiver.
Are you telling me then that I can interchange the black box unit between a 2000 and a 2100?
Yes, you can.
Or vice versa?
Vice versa, no problem.
No problem whatsoever?
No problem whatsoever.
With the exception of an IRD unit?
Right.
All right. Now we have a couple of connectors here. What are these for?
These two connectors are supplied because some satellite receivers have an RF connector on the back instead of an RCA connector like you have here in these video cables. This RCA connector here plugs into the back of that. Now you can screw this connector into the back of the satellite receiver. Or if your satellite receiver has the RCA jack, you just plug it straight in, pull that off. Now you can plug the other end into the Videocipher.
And the last cable?
This last cable here can be used for the other video signal that's on the Videocipher. That's for your bypass video. That's so that you can receive the scrambled channels or the unscrambled channels. One cable is for what they call baseband video, the other cable is for normal video. There again you have a converter, slip on the end, and if your receiver has this type of RF connector on it, allows you to go into it that way. Most receivers have an RCA jack like that for the normal video output.
All right, why don't we turn the Videocipher around and go through it again, physically connecting and explaining each of the points on the back of the Videocipher. Would you please connect these and review the information again for us?
Sure. Well, we have the coax cable here that we can use to hook up to your VHF antenna input and the VHF output that would go to your TV or your videotape recorder. The reason you have these two connections is there's a button on the front of the receiver that you can push so that it bypasses your Videocipher, takes it out of the circuit, and allows you to watch normal television either through your cable system or the outside TV antenna that you have. And the top cable goes to your antenna right here.
Fine.
The one below it goes to your TV set, and that's the one that is switched back and forth through this connection. And it connects in the same manner, like this.
Okay.
So essentially you have two cables coming from your Videocipher going to your outside equipment, one being your TV set. The other cables would go to your Videocipher, and there the 70 megacycle loop comes into play. If your satellite receiver has a 70 megacycle loop, it's most advantageous to use that. It doesn't matter which cable you use to put on here, even though it says in and out. The cables connected here go inside the satellite receiver to the 70 megacycle loop inside, and they're connected electrically to the same physical position. So there is no in and out, so to speak.
Let me review that with you. Even though it's marked input and output, do I understand that both of these are identical?
Yes, they are.
And
Yes,
I can use either one for input or output?
Right.
Okay.
So if you're having a problem getting your Videocipher to work, it's not because you have these two in the wrong position. Now, if you have these two over here, that would cause a problem.
And I do want to use a 70 megahertz loop primarily, rather than to use the next connection. Is that correct also?
That's true. When you have the 70 megacycle system hooked up, in your literature it tells you that there's some switches right here. This top switch called input has a line going right over here to the top, and it shows it, the switch being in the position for the 70 megacycle loop to be in play. And right next to it there's a video polarity switch, and that is only if you're using the baseband video input instead of the 70 megacycle.
So when I'm using my 70 megahertz loop, I will move the switch to that position.
Right.
And if I'm using the baseband, I will move it to
The opposite position.
the opposite position.
There's a line down here. It's like a flow chart.
Okay.
Line goes down, goes over here and up. It indicates that now this circuitry here has been switched to the video input side of the Videocipher instead of a 70 megacycle.
All right. Let's assume that I don't have a 70 megahertz loop and I have to go over to this connection over here.
Fine.
What will I do?
Well, they provide cables just for that purpose, right here. These cables are a little fatter. They're a little different than the audio cables. You find that connection right there. That's your baseband video input. Move your 70 megacycle switch over so it's towards that input. You select whether the video polarity is in the A or the B position.
What is video polarity?
That's where your video is either positive or negative coming out of the satellite receiver. And some satellite receivers have that option. Sometimes it's inside the receiver and the consumer is not able to make the decision as to where that switch is on the inside of the receiver, so he has the option of changing it on the outside of the Videocipher.
Okay. The next...
This connection right here
Right.
has an adapter that's supplied in the kit that we covered earlier. Put that on there, and that can go to your satellite receiver if it has that fitting similar to this on there.
Oh, I see.
If it doesn't, it probably has the RCA connection. Straight in you go.
Okay.
You're up.
Our next connection?
Okay. You get the other RCA cable. And it goes in there just like that. And it's a good idea to connect these cables separately and maybe take a piece of tape and mark both ends of the table so that you don't get them confused later on in making the connections to your satellite receiver. This cable, if improperly connected to the satellite receiver, confusing baseband or composite or a scrambled video output with the cable that belongs here, will cause the Videocipher not to function properly. On the back of your satellite receiver, you probably have an option of this RF connector with the converter on the end. If it doesn't work, you simply put that on, shove that onto your satellite receiver, and that'll get you going.
All right.
Now we'll take this one off so we can get a better view of the other cables.
Our next connections?
Okay, you have video output. Most of the times the video output connector right here is not used unless you have an external modulator. Maybe your video tape recorder has a video input on it you might want to use, or if you have a TV set that's a monitor that you want to use raw video instead of any RF coming out of the Videocipher, you can use that one. It's also an RCA jack that you can use one of these RCA cables for.
All right. Our next connection?
Okay, you have two more connections right there next to each other. In the middle you have an audio level control. And these two connections right here would probably go to an external satellite stereo processor. And that's so that you can adjust your satellite receiver's audio between 5 and 8 megacycles to get the different subcarriers that are used. If you don't connect these up to to your satellite, either your satellite receiver tuner or your stereo processor. When you go to a non-scrambled satellite service, you won't have any audio. So you have to have either one or both of these hooked up.
All right.
And it doesn't really matter which one, because unless this Videocipher is in the stereo mode, it comes out of here mono with the use of this switch over here.
Okay. Which brings us to this audio output levels.
Okay. These two audio output levels are primarily used for the digital audio that comes out of the Videocipher when it's descrambling a scrambled signal. When it's not descrambling a scrambled signal, there's an electronic circuit in there that runs this audio input from your satellite audio processing equipment directly over to this one. The L's for the left channel, L's for the left channel. And the same with the right one. When you're not in a scrambled mode, the audio is bypassed straight over to here. This way it allows your stereo equipment to bypass standard audio signals from the satellite system.
All right. Let's back up and now go to the setting controls, starting with the one right over here.
Okay. You have a video level control right here. And what that does is adjusts the video input level from your baseband video coming from the satellite receiver that has all the signals that are necessary for the Videocipher to respond to a Videocipher signal. That's the only time that this circuit right here and this control comes into play, is when the signal is scrambled. There's a control here that you use to adjust between the 10 o'clock and 1 o'clock position to get the best descrambled signal out of your Videocipher and cause some numbers on the screen that we'll cover later to move along at a little rapid rate.
You'll show that to us later, how to make that adjustment?
Right.
All right.
It's a very critical adjustment if you're using baseband video input.
Okay. If I were not using baseband video and I were connected to the 70 megahertz loop, I would not be making that adjustment, is that correct?
No. And it's not even used.
It's not used for the 70 megahertz.
Right.
It's only used for the baseband video.
Right.
All right. Our next level control here.
Okay. The next level control right here can be adjusted in any position you want. It's not really too critical of an adjustment. But what it does allow you to do is get the video level between a scrambled signal and a non-scrambled signal to look the same. That way you don't have to go over to your TV set all the time and adjust your brightness and contrast level.
So I would be doing this the first time that I would be connecting my receiver to the Videocipher to balance between the two, is that correct?
Yeah, just put the controls, find the outer limits of the controls. You don't have to turn them very hard. Go all the way one way, go all the way the other way, then find the center, there you go. Same with this one. Go all the way one way, all the way back. If you have a Videocipher that's working, and you have working properly, and you have a receiver that's working properly, these controls, when they're set in the center, will work fine.
All right. And we have a audio level control also.
Right. When you go between a scrambled channel that puts out digital audio and a non-scrambled channel that puts out audio at different levels from satellite to satellite and channel to channel, this control right here is used to help balance out the difference between the digital audio and the normal audio that's not scrambled, so that you don't have to run to your TV set and adjust the volume up and down.
Mike, you just passed on a lot of information, and I couldn't possibly remember everything you've just told me. What do you suggest?
Read the book, rewind the tape, take notes.
All right. While they're rewinding the tape to review this, why don't we start to disassemble this unit and show the interior?
Okay.
Now, we do have a number of screw positions, and we've already removed those, and we have one screw left. So let's physically remove the back plate.
Okay.
This will interfere here, won't it?
Yes. Pull all the connections off of the back of the receiver, or satellite decoder. Pull our stuff out of the way so we can get a good view of what we're looking at. Take a standard Phillips screwdriver. Pull out the screw. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 screws in the back of this. There's a little lip on the bottom. You just pull it down a little bit. Pull this off. Now you have the back. If you're going to be making the connections all over again, you can put this right about there. And these are pretty self-explanatory as to how you had it hooked up. But if you're just concerned in getting the Videocipher to work only on a scrambled service without having all the other options connected, just to do any troubleshooting or checking out of your Videocipher, there's only two things you have to have. This cable here, which is your RF cable. It goes to your TV set. And baseband input, right there.
That's all I need to test the Videocipher?
Right, and move the switches in the appropriate position. So we put this switch away from the 70 megacycle and switch this switch for one position or the other, depending on the kind of video we have coming out of the receiver.
And I assume I would want to adjust this switch to either channel 3 or channel 4.
Right. Most of the Videociphers come with the switch on channel 3 for some reason.
Okay.
I don't know why. Now, there's two screws on the side of this housing right here. They're large Phillips screws, but it just slides back and you can lift it up. Take your pick.
Looks very complicated.
Yeah.
Why don't we start by removing the Videocipher box itself right here, and
Okay.
then we'll go into the interior of the unit.
Okay, we can do that. We can have
How
it
do we
all
do
opened
that?
up. First, make sure that this is in this position.
Tell me, Mike, what will happen if the unit is not unplugged and I would withdraw the box or insert the box?
You do what's commonly called a smoke test.
A smoke test?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
If you light a match and then you blow the match out, then you have smoke. And that's exactly what's going to happen to this unit, because there are some very sensitive parts inside this black housing that when you're pulling it out, you lose a ground connection on the edge connector of this housing. And this power supply over here will not like that condition. And it goes through these little microscopic coils that they have in there. The wire is very fine, and they just smoke and cause the paint that's on the outside of the coil to almost catch on fire and burn a hole in the board.
When I see the smoke coming out of the unit, then I know I've made a mistake by not disconnecting the unit first.
All right.
I hope that you'll show us later on those circuits that are involved should we perform this unfortunate smoke test. Will you
Right.
do that for us later?
Sure. No
Okay.
problem.
Let's withdraw the unit now. Can we do that?
Okay. You lift it up. There are two notches on the bottom of this computer housing, and it's in a black anti-static case. You just merely pull on that, slides right out, fits in there nice, neat and snug. And if you turn it around, you'll see that there's an edge connector there like you would find in a card that would go into a common computer that most people have in their homes nowadays. And that's the connector that causes the problem when you pull it out.
Oh, I see. All right. Let's put this aside. This is what we commonly refer to as the milk crate. Let's put this aside for a couple minutes and we'll discuss the inside of the Videocipher.
Okay. We have basically three things inside here. We have our power supply system. We have our audio video board right here. Then we have the 70 megacycle IF. There really isn't anything to service on this board here. I've never had a problem with one. Not too many people that I've talked to have had problems with them, except where the customer pushes a screwdriver in on these two controls and they fall all the way back. But some of the earlier models had supporting devices on those controls, and the problem. And then some of the later ones are a little cheaper, and you just barely touch the control and they fold right back and break.
All right.
The other thing is the 70 megacycle IF. There are three adjustments on this that you can make, but you only make them if you're having a problem with them. Sometimes the unit gets a little hot, overheated, parts lose their tolerances inside. There's a couple ICs in there. Maybe they wander a little bit, and you'd have to compensate the unit with a couple of adjustments on the
Where are
controls.
those adjustments made?
There's one right here. It's a control that's similar to this control and this control. There's one here and there's one here. Then there's another one that's right here. Now, these two right here adjust the bandwidth of the 70 megacycle IF. You don't want to get too high in the bandwidth and you don't want to get too low in the bandwidth. But on the other hand, you don't want to bring the bandwidth in too close because then you start losing some of the data that's involved in there.
All right. Geez, I can see now what you mean by these connectors connecting internally here. Here's the cable that goes physically in there.
Right. They go right down to the bottom of the 70 megacycle IF. There's a little trace that goes straight over to the other side and then comes right back out.
Super.
And if you have a problem with the 70 megacycle IF because this part of the circuit doesn't work, but you put a receiver on there and the baseband works, then you know this is probably defective. And if you can't adjust it out, then there's two Phillips screws that you can take off. One here and one here, and just lift it right out, and this 4-cable connector right there. You cannot put these cables in improperly when you're trading IFs because one cable's longer than the other. If you switch them around, the other one won't reach and go in the hole.
Super.
So it saves you that problem.
Okay. Is there anything else I should know about the interior of the unit here?
Well, you have a front control panel interface processor right here. We'll move the unit out here a little bit, and we'll pull it off. And this slides out in this direction after removing the two Phillips screws. Have to bring it out in an angle like this. It comes right out. And there's another card right here that has two Phillips screws on it that we've already disconnected. And this 6-wire connector right here just pulls right off. And you can trade this unit for another one if the Videocipher has a problem. You can trade this for a 2100 or a 2000. It doesn't matter, just to try it.
Okay. But this is this the actual connector that connected to our milk crate over here before?
Right.
Reach down and get it. So this actually was connecting
We
in
can
here.
pull this off the top and get a better view
All right.
of how to hook that up. Now, leaving this computer board in this anti-static housing will prevent the bottom of the circuit board from touching any of this, causing a short.
Good idea. And we could connect it like this.
Right. Now, with that connected in this manner, it allows several things to take place. If you have test equipment, you can hook it up to this circuit board during the process of making adjustments either to your IF, if you have a scope and a meter, and those type of devices. This has to be hooked up right here to the top connector. That's from the interfacing board, from the front control panel. Now, this doesn't have to be hooked onto the Videocipher. It can just lay down here on the table, and you have full control over all the functions of the Videocipher while monitoring any function of this computer board while it's in this condition.
While we have the Videocipher board open and in the test position here, would you explain some of the adjustments that can be made?
One adjustment that I recommend not be made is this control right here. This adjusts the internal frequency that this security processor runs at, commonly referred to as the U7 microprocessor. This control right here adjusts the position of the window that your on-screen graphics is displayed in on your TV set. It's no big deal, you can adjust it to wherever you want it. This control here is like a squelch control that you would have on a CB set.
Mm-hmm.
You can adjust it to one level and it will not respond to any Videocipher signals. As you start increasing the adjustment, it's more sensitive to Videocipher signals as the higher the adjustment is made. So some satellite receivers may develop a problem later on where you go to one particular channel that's not scrambled and the Videocipher thinks it's picking up a Videocipher signal. Then you may want to break the seal away from the top of the control and turn it counterclockwise just a hair, just a little bit.
All right. The only other thing that I see on the board that looks like it's an adjustment is this device over here.
Okay, this little circuit right here is the board's clock circuit. What that does is it runs at a certain frequency based on the frequency of this crystal. It has a divider circuit in here, and then it feeds the pulses coming out of that circuit over to the different areas of this board so that the computer can run. The only reason that you would have to adjust this coil is if you had to replace the crystal. If the crystal goes bad, then you have to make a minor adjustment on the coil.
Otherwise, I'm never adjusting it.
No. If you adjust this coil thinking it's going to cause you to get something that you're not supposed to get, adjusting out too far will cause this circuit to chirp or send out sporadic signals. And this microprocessor here will think it's doing something called single stepping. The way the hardware on this system is set up, if this goes through what's called a single step, it can cause this processor to lose all its information.
I'll blow my memory at that point?
Right down the drain.
Lose my ID number?
Everything.
$250 repair?
You got it.
Let's stay away from that part.
Okay.
While we have the board so visible, let's just have a little discussion about the smoke test and the damage that would be caused by withdrawing or inserting the milk crate with the power connected. Shall we go through these parts and explain what the physical signs are?
Sure. First giveaway clue is this L1 and L2 coil. They turn as black as this IC right here when they're blown. They melt, they burn holes in the board, they blow in half.
You point them out again, please.
L1 and L2.
What are L1 and L2?
They're called chokes. They look like a resistor. They might measure like a resistor, but actually there's a very, very small wire in there. It's almost microscopic. It's about 20 or 30 feet long. And in some cases I've measured them as high as 100 ohms.
In this case, what are the values of L1 and L2?
I believe they're 33 microhenries.
Right. These commonly available parts?
Well, you may not be able to find a 33 microhenry choke with what they call a Q that would fit in here, but you can find something that is going to be close and physically can make the connection between this solder pad and this solder pad. It's not a critical component. You can put a 20, a 10, you could probably put a straight piece of wire across there and get away with it.
Right. What are the other parts that are commonly associated with the burned out smoke tests?
Okay. You have a U1, and that is an IC. It's commonly referred to as a TLO81, commonly available part at Radio Shack or any other OEM distributor. And there's two diodes right down here, CR2, CR1. They short out occasionally. And it's not too often that you find the CR1 or CR2 diode shorted. The next part to go down the line is this DAC right here. It's a digital to analog converter, and this DAC, which is a digital to analog converter. They're both the same part. They have the same part number on them. They are interchangeable in either position. So if you elect to trade them, in case you have one audio channel bad and the other one good, you can swap them out. This board will even run if one of them is missing.
All right.
One shorted out or bad one can cause the other one not to function. So you can pull them both out and then stick them in one in a socket if you install it in this position, or you can pull it out and then stick the other one in that socket that you would put in this position. The other thing is when these L1 and L2 go out, and after replacing them, you can measure a voltage on this side and then measure a voltage on this side of L1. And you should have within a few tenths of a volt the same voltage on both sides. And one of these is a plus voltage, and the other L1 has a minus voltage on it. And you should have relatively the same voltage on both sides. If you don't, then that means a component on one of these two sides right here where the voltage comes out is shorted out. And replacing the L1 consistently, because it keeps smoking when you plug it in and turn it on, will not resolve the problem. You have to find the component that's bad.
Are there any other components that...
Yes. Any of the devices that have CD numbers in front of them are CMOS devices. Here's one, it says CD 4053. Let's see, here's CD 4066. There's another one right here. Where's the other one? CD, yeah, we already covered that, CD 4066 right there. And this op amp right here, it's an LF 353. That's the same as a TLO 81. You have another LF 353, that's the same thing. Over here you have a CA 3080, and over here you have a 3080. These are MOS type devices and are very sensitive to power interruptions. And you have one more over here. That's a TLO 81 also. Those are all amplifiers, any of these 8-legged devices. And when either L1 or L2 go out, they can be damaged.
From what you're telling me, this seems to be a fairly expensive repair. And if I understand you correctly, the smartest way to avoid this whole problem is really to have this disconnected.
Right, in plain sight.
In plain sight whenever we're inserting or withdrawing the milk crate.
Right.
I've noticed that there's a wire running here. I've never seen this before. What is that?
Well, when we got this board for repair, the dealer that installed this U30 socket right here in this position tore a trace. And the only way you could pick up the trace is by putting a wire from this side of the chip, which has pins 1 through 14 on over here, and 15 through 28 over here. So they use a voltmeter in the continuity position to determine which trace is open, and they ran the wire from this side of the circuit board over to this hole where they saw the trace made its final connection.
You would always go to the next plate through hole when you're reestablishing a trace?
If it's available.
If it's available, okay. I've noticed on the newer 2100s a couple of blue wires that run through the unit. What are they for?
Right. The 2100 is a revision of the Videocipher so that this housing with the computer board in it would be compatible with an IRD. The wires that go from this chip and this chip come over here to this U9 chip. There's a trace cut on the top of the board and one cut on the bottom of the board in order to allow this chip to be interfaced with these two devices. And that's part of the modification in the IRD to allow the on-screen graphics to turn on and off.
Okay. What other common problems do you find?
When we get repairs, sometimes the complaint is no on-screen graphics, but everything else works okay. There's no way for them to display the serial number for reauthorization or some of the other functions. And earlier, some people had been modifying this chip right here, which is the graphics display generator, by either shorting pins 10 and 11, or cutting pin 6, or cutting the trace going from pin 6 to this resistor network, and then connecting a resistor to the pin 6 over here to the power. When you do that, it turns off some of the functions of this graphics display generator and renders your Videocipher useless for displaying the next program, your serial number, stuff like that. When you first turn the Videocipher on, this bottom light comes on. Then the next thing that happens is the top light comes on. When the microprocessor is running, it'll turn that top light off. During its operating condition, it's looking for a Videocipher signal. When it finds it, it'll turn that top light back on. If you're on a Videocipher signal and you get the bottom light to come on, the top light to come on, then go off, and it never comes on again, you probably have a bad optical coupler. When installing the U30, if there's no epoxy on the board, which this one had none, there are several components that you have to watch out for when doing the installation. One is this transistor right here operates what they call the power down circuit, and it keeps your RAM over here alive all the time and prevents it from being overwritten when you turn the power off. If you're soldering around the bottom of this board or applying anything to the top of the board. You have to stay away from this transistor because striking it with your screwdriver would cause a problem. This capacitor, the little electrolyte capacitor right here,
C71
is also across the power bus from your battery to your RAM and your security processor where your serial number is stored. If you strike either one of these, you can damage this processor right here or cause it to lose its ID. There's one more part. This resistor right here is called R69. It's right below the 7001 processor. It has a voltage on one side and a voltage on the other side. It's just a dropping resistor that goes to this processor so that if it shorts out, it won't make your battery explode.
touching either side of that R69,
Can cause a momentary power interruption to this processor.
which will cause us to lose the ID
You'll
number.
lose your ID number, your authorization, everything.
In the installation of the ProTech that we'll be showing later, we do recommend that the installer place a piece of black tape over the legs on the front and the back of Q6 and C71 if he's working in a U30 area.
Right.
Or if he's working in the U19 area, we recommend placing a piece of black electrical tape over R69 on the front of the back to prevent the accidental striking
Right.
of those components. Now we're going to take a little time and I'm going to discuss with you static and anti-static precautions. Because static is invisible, you think that it's not there. But in fact, merely rubbing your feet once upon a carpet, as we have here, will induce a static electricity charge of over 1,000 kilovolts. This charge is enough to wipe out your Videocipher board. I am going to move my left foot once and my right foot once on this carpet, and I am going to show you the static electricity charge that will be induced into this meter we have on the table. Watch as I put my hand over the meter.
Do it again.
Gentlemen, that was a 1,000 kilovolt charge, and that all could have been avoided had you used either a grounded wrist strap. There are two models. This one has a Velcro adjustment on it. This must be used, the grounded wrist strap must be used at all times whenever working on a Videocipher. The other thing that I'd like to highly recommend that you use is a grounded table pad. I have now placed this grounded wrist strap on my wrist and have run it to this grounded table pad. I will now move my feet on the floor as I did before and show you that this 1,000 kilovolt static charge is fully dissipated through the anti-static mat into the grounded receptacle. No static electricity. Gentlemen, you must always wear a grounded wrist strap when working on the Videocipher boards. The grounded table mat or the grounded wrist strap must be attached to a grounding source, either a cold water pipe or you can attach to the middle screw of a grounded receptacle. The non-adjustable type that has the alligator clip would simply clip on as such.
We have the most common feature of the Videocipher, and that's the setup function 1 through 4. We go into setup 1, and that gives us a serial number at the top, which you call in for authorization. This right here is a signal level, and the numbers indicate how well balanced the fine-tuning is in your satellite receiver. If this number is lower or higher than the one on the other side, or vice versa, it indicates that your fine-tuning is too low or too high. Now, 46 to 44, 36 to 44, those are all pretty close. But if you have 1 to 44 or 10 to 44, the spread is extremely too high, and you can obviously tell that it's not centered properly. The value of the number 44, 30s, even in the 25s, are all acceptable for a Videocipher to function properly. You get into marginal Videocipher operations when you get around 10 over 10.
Okay.
Then you have the A0. Most people refer to that as addressable on. Location has been set. That means everything is set up in the Videocipher for authorization.
All right.
It doesn't tell you what service or anything. It just says it has been hit. Then we go to the other setup function, number 2. And this gives you different audio modes that are selectable. To my knowledge, there's nothing being used in that area right now. Then there's the message prompt. Press number 2 to disable it if you don't want any messages. And I go to number 3. The rating ceiling of the Videocipher right now is set at PG-13.
How do we raise or lower it?
There are 2 arrows on the bottom of the Videocipher. One right arrow and one left arrow. If you move the left arrow, it lowers the rating ceiling and stops at G. Right now the program rating is indicating it's a PG-13 program. Right below it, it says program locked out due to rating level. All we have to do to fix that is equal or exceed the PG rating. And it goes high as X. Some Videociphers, like the 2100s and some of the other in-between versions, went X, double X, and triple X. Other variations of the Videocipher, depending on how the MPA code was put in it, goes X, 6, and 7, indicating 6 would be 2 X's, 7 being 3 X's. So we move this back down to G for another demonstration purpose. Now we go to the setup for function. If we want to prevent people from watching program material that's over the G rating, we can enter in a password. So we'll put a 0 in there, press the enter. Now if you're not sure about re-entering the number, all you have to do is hit cancel. Takes the number, takes the little star away.
Okay.
Now you have no password entered in there. If we did hit enter again, it would have accepted it because the processor in here would have known that we entered the correct number twice. Therefore, we're liable to not forget that one. The other function of this in the PG-13 mode is that when the diagnostics level of the Videocipher, which is accessible through the setup 0 function, we now see that at the bottom of the screen we have an SL, and that means the service is locked out. Also, a good indication that the service is locked out and not getting any audio is that this number over here is an audio decryption level indicator, and right now it's over 2, and that means that there is no audio.
And we are locked out because we've exceeded our parental lockout code, is that correct?
Right.
All right.
Right. Now we can go back, go to setup 3, and it says the program is locked out due to rating level. So we move the right arrow, move to PG, PG-13, and then R.
All right.
Now we go to setup 0. Now it says service is authorized. The numbers over here indicate that the audio is being decrypted. Over here is what's commonly referred to as the monthly code, D being this month. Over here we have the system clock, all these numbers right here. These numbers are supposed to run as fast as these numbers because they're synchronized to each line that comes across the TV screen. If we take the screwdriver that you have in your hand there and you go to the baseband video level control,
The first
and
one?
And it's the one in between the 2 video
Okay.
inputs,
I'm right
the
there.
baseband and the composite
Right.
video, or the composite video
Mhm.
and the normal video clamped input. If you adjust that control very little, you'll see that the numbers stop moving, you lose authorization and sync lock.
Boy, we lost
Now,
everything that
If you
time.
move it back now, you can stop right there.
There we go.
There you go. Still says service authorized, but it's a lie.
Right.
It's still authorized for this particular service, but now we have no audio because these numbers right here are not updating the unit's current code will cause this number to climb. Now, in order to get this number down so that the Videocipher can decode the audio, these numbers right here have to start moving again, and that tells the computer when information is coming in over there. So now adjust the control back to the approximate position that we discussed earlier, around between the 11 and 11 o'clock position.
And this is what we refer to as the maximum number roll.
SAM commonly appears, and that's service missing. SB is service blocked. SA is service authorized. SL is service locked. UM occasionally appears, and I believe that stands for unit missing authorization. UB is unit blocked. UA is unit authorized. And UL is unit locked. And those are the only ones I've seen outside of the F series. And the only one that I'm aware of is FA, and that's free authorization. Well, Steve, here we have all our wares set up on the table. Why don't we discuss just exactly what we have?
Certainly, Mike. As you well know, Testron manufactures a line of test instruments known as ProTech. However, I would like to say at this time that ProTech is a test instrument, and it is not intended to deprive people of signal income and should not be used for this purpose. It will only be sold to TVRO dealers and only as a test instrument. It should not be sold to Videocipher owners for pirate purposes. In addition, ProTech will only work in units that have at least one authorization. ProTech is designed not to work in units that have never been authorized.
First one we have here is our Videocipher module with a ProTech installed at the U19 position. And the reason it was installed right here is because this chip has epoxy all over it, therefore it was easier to get into the processor than that U30 position.
Right, Mike. That is known as our ProTech 2100 model
Right.
for U19.
Mm-hmm. And we also have two different versions for the U30 position also.
This module is designed, I understand, to replace the U30 chip, and there are actually two models of this.
That's
The
right.
Model 2000 and the Model 2100 to run on 3.0 software.
Right.
In addition, our newest model is the ProTech 0181. This unit will work only in 0181 units. If you have a Videocipher 2100 with an ID number less than 0181, you'll have to order that one. They are not interchangeable. In addition, each ProTech module comes with a socket. We highly advise that you use our socket in the installation. We have another model for the new IRD units. This IRD unit must go into position U19 and will work in any IRD unit. The majority of the ProTech units, in addition, do have a test block on them to allow the technician to go between the full security position and the bypass position. I've heard from a lot of customers and dealers in rural areas who have told me that their customers could not acquire a strong enough signal because of a horizon problem or tree line or whatever, and that in fact what they had done was to install their Videocipher board and see what signals could be acquired and then advise their customers to subscribe to those services that brought in a strong enough signal.
Right.
In addition, each ProTech model comes with its own set of instructions that runs at least 4 pages, including diagrams. It goes through the installation of the ProTech unit in the Videocipher, soldering precautions, helpful hints, and troubleshooting the Videocipher using the ProTech unit. Our newest product is the ProTech BRM battery replacement module. Mike, would you tell us about this, please?
They'll allow him to go into the Videocipher and extract all the pertinent information necessary to keep his Videocipher running after the battery has been removed and then put back onto the board. And it only involves a few short steps to re-enter the information back into the Videocipher.
Do I understand that there is a shelf life or period life on the batteries in the Videociphers?
Sure. The batteries, these lithium batteries here on the ends of the boards, and in some cases they're nickel-cadmium batteries, have a shelf life of estimated 10 years. But I found that equipment of this nature that's operating in the high temperatures that they're only good for a couple of years. And at the end of 2 years, you have a $250, $300 repair ahead of you.
So the dealer can visit the customer's home and replace the battery, restore all his information on site, and charge the customer a reasonable service charge and not have to remove that unit from the customer's home for outside service. Is that correct?
That's right.
Would you please demonstrate our new battery replacement module for us?
Sure. That's setup 9. This allows you to do several things. What we want to do is dump the memory. And this right here you should record on a videotape. VHS or Betamax would be fine. And not in one of the slow modes, but in one of the faster modes where you can do freeze frames.
All right. Well, I assume they could do it with a Polaroid camera, possibly.
Sure. Anything to record the information where you don't rely on writing it down by hand.
All right.
Because you can make errors.
All of the products demonstrated in this instructional video tape are for sale by Testron. The product that I would like to discuss right now is our epoxy decapsulization solvent, ProSolve. It is methylene chloride based and contains approximately 10 organic acids. It is extremely powerful and extremely obnoxious smelling. It should be used with gloves, goggles, and rubber apron. Adequate ventilation is also necessary. We'd also like to display the full line of Unger products that Testron sells. In addition, the Unger company has provided us an instructional tape showing proper desoldering methods utilizing the Unger line. And Mike, at this time, I'd like to start rolling the tape for our audience to see.
Sure.
The Ungar 4624 and the Ungar 4024. If you're using the pencil style handle, the tip is installed using the tip tool. Loosen the set screw, insert the tip, and retighten the screw. To begin the desoldering operation, turn on the main power switch. For units which have both a soldering iron and a desoldering tool, there will be a main power control plus separate on-off switches for both instruments. Once the instrument is turned on, set the temperatures to the desired specifications using the electronic variable temperature controls. If your unit has both a soldering iron and a desoldering tool, the temperature controls will be independent in each respective handpiece. Desoldering is a very simple operation. Place the tip of the heated tool over the lead and hold the tip square to the board. The solder should melt within 2 or 3 seconds for flat-leaded components such as this IC. Once you see the solder melt, wiggle the lead and using the button on the side of the tool, activate the vacuum for an additional 2 to 3 seconds. This vacuum will deposit the solder into the collection chamber at the rear of the instrument. At the same time, the vacuum will draw cool air from the backside of the board through the hole, cooling both the hole and the pad. Continue the vacuum until the tool is removed from the lead. Remember, when desoldering a component, place the tip over the lead, notice the solder melt, make a side-to-side motion, and activate the vacuum. Then, remove the tool while the vacuum is still running. By wiggling the lead, you prevent sweat joints from forming inside the hole. Wiggling the lead is also a good indicator that complete solder melt has occurred on both sides of the board. Always alternate leads when desoldering a component. This will prevent sweat joints from forming in the hole you've already finished. In addition, it minimizes heating of the board, which can cause damage. When desoldering a lead, it is important to remember that heat and pressure damage the bond strength of the pad to the board. High temperature alone will decrease the bond strength about 75%. So when desoldering, never apply pressure to the pad. By not pressing down on the pad with the desoldering tool, you'll keep this operation as non-destructive as possible. If a lead is bent, it must be straightened before desoldering. To do this, place the tip of the heated desoldering tool over the lead. Allow the solder to melt, and bend up gently on the lead. Never try to desolder a bent lead, as it may damage the pad and the hole. Once all the leads of the component have been desoldered, use an appropriate tool to make sure no sweat joints have formed. To do this, lay the tool next to the lead and gently press into the component. Do this for all the leads on both sides of the component. Once that is done, simply lift the component out. When removing a round-leaded component, such as a capacitor, the procedure is similar. First, place the heated tip over the lead. Then, instead of making a side-to-side motion, you want to rotate the tip around the lead and activate the vacuum pump. Place the tip over the lead, rotate, and vacuum the solder out. The capacitor can then be removed. Proper cleaning of the unit is crucial to ensure good operation and long life. There are two areas of this tool which require routine maintenance. The first is the tip. The second is the glass collection chamber located inside the handle. To clean the tip chamber, remove the tip using the tip tool. Next, take a wire brush and ream the tip chamber while activating the vacuum. This will remove any excess solder back into the glass collection chamber. Once completed, replace the tip. The glass collection tube must also be cleaned regularly. To do this, first remove the tube by giving a slight push and clockwise twist to the end cap. The glass tube will still be attached to the end cap. Tip the assembly over and shake out any loose solder. Then, grasp the glass tube with a gloved hand or protective rag and gently extract it from the rubber vacuum plug. Next, push out the aluminum baffle and the felt filter plug using the nylon brush provided. Pass the brush through the glass tube several times to clean it. To reassemble the unit, slide the baffle about halfway into the tube and replace the filter. The glass collection chamber is then placed back onto the rubber vacuum plug. Insert the chamber into the desoldering tool and secure it with a slight counterclockwise twist. You've just seen how to operate and maintain the Ungar line of desoldering units. This presentation is just one of the ways we're keeping our customers informed about how best to use and maintain the fine line of Ungar products. Ungar is the only company offering a complete line of soldering and desoldering accessories for electronic assembly and repair.
Using the ProSolve and the Dremel tool, we are now going to demonstrate the proper removal of components. In this case, U30.
Okay. In this case, we have a board that doesn't have very much epoxy on U30, but we can pretend that there's epoxy all over this board. What we want to do is have this Dremel tool mounted into a drill press that holds it steady. And this Videocipher module will be mounted onto a jig that will fasten it down in four corners. Here, and here, here, and here. The end of this Dremel tool is flat, and that allows us to get a nice close shave down against the Videocipher board without making contact with any of the metallic surfaces that are in here. We do not want this tip to touch the resistor. We do not want the chip to touch the U30 legs, but we want it to cut into the epoxy from one end to the other for the application of the ProSolve. And a good way to do that is you take the Dremel tool and put it down near the circuit board as close as you can to U30 and lift it up about 1/16 of an inch. Turn the Dremel tool on and merely push the board forward on the jig. It cuts a nice clean track down U30. Then you turn the board over and you do the same thing on the bottom. On the marks that are generally put on a jig made from a Videocipher board that doesn't have epoxy on it, you want this Dremel tool to go over the top of the pins that come off the bottom of U30.
And then we'll apply the ProSolve in those grooves that we've just cut with the Dremel tool to do the final work of removing the epoxy.
That's correct.
All right. After the epoxy removal, at that point we can insert the socket. And now we're going to show the actual demonstration of the jig and the Dremel tool.
We show the insertion of this special Allen wrench that's used to remove the security screw on the bottom of the computer housing. We use a hammer and a chisel to chip away at the edge of the computer housing. and then take the hammer and tap along the outside edges in order to crack the housing loose in order to get to the board inside. And here we check the inside of the housing to make sure that the circuit board has not been damaged. We use the Dremel tool to cut a trench alongside U30 on the top of the Videocipher housing. And there's a clear shot of the trench along the side of U30. When the module is turned over, we use the Dremel tool in the jig to cut another little trench. We use 2 trenches on each side of U30 in order to expose the pins of the U30 on the bottom side. We move the Dremel tool over to the other side of U30 and cut 2 more little trenches before we apply the ProSolve solution. This is what the bottom of the U30 chip looks like after the Dremel tool has done its work on both sides. We apply the ProSolve solution with an eyedropper to make sure that we get it right into the trench. We put the Videocipher housing into a Ziploc bag and pull it completely over the top of the Videocipher housing. At this point, we can use an eyedropper to apply the ProSolve at the same time. In order to cut the evaporation down, we pull the Ziploc bag completely over and then tie it shut. The epoxy around U30 has been completely broken down. Now all we have to do is take a small toothbrush and remove the remnants. This is a close-up shot of what the epoxy looks like after it's been broken down. We used a brush, brushed away what we could. Then we used a little alcohol and cleaned the rest of the circuit board, and you can see the traces right below U30. This is the bottom of U30. What we want to do is clean the epoxy remnants away from U30 and not concern ourselves with the island between the 2 red lines. This is a shot after the board has been cleaned with a little bit of alcohol. This has been completely cleaned off. The top row of pins on U30 have been completely desoldered, and then we started on the bottom row. Over to the left, there are still a few pins left soldered. The line drawn over to the right indicates a pad that has a small trace leaving it going up into the small island. You have to make sure that that position is still intact. This is U30 completely removed. This is the U30 position with a socket installed, and we'll highlight a capacitor that you can cut away in order that the Protect module fits up against the epoxy. This is the Protect module completely installed.
Mike, it's been a pleasure having you in the studio today. I hope this tape has been as informative and as educational to our customers as it has been to you.
Yeah, I'm sure that both of us can benefit by mutual sharing of all this information.
Of course, if you have any question concerning our products or would like to order anything, please follow the instructions enclosed on the order forms. And thank you very much for being with us.